Hello, and welcome to another episode of That 60s Recording Podcast, the podcast that has conversations inspired by the golden era of recording. I hope you've all had a lovely Christmas time. I was going to say the Paul McCartney joke again then, and I bailed on it as I was saying it. I have a gig on Boxing Day, which I'm not quite sure why I agreed to do. But anyway, that's that. So I'm recording this before Christmas, but hopefully when you're all listening to this, you've had a lovely Christmas and you're all full of beer and wine and mince pies and whatever you have for your Christmas dinner. Okay, so I'm back here with the second episode of the Clem Cattini conversation, which a lot of you have been in touch with to say that you're really enjoying. Clem is just an absolutely lovely chap. And there seems to be an awful lot of love for him out there. So yes, hope you're enjoying this conversation and we'll just get straight into it. Here we go, Clem Cattini.
How many? What were you doing? 3-4 sessions a day? You know, what was your sort of routine? Did you head down for sort of 10 o'clock in the morning and just sort of hang around?
I think my record was 21 sessions in a week.
Wow!
Because we were doing like 10 till 10 every day, which is 21. And that was more than that. And I was doing more. Actually, it's more than that because I also did a couple of midnight ones as well, sort of midnight till 2 o'clock in the morning ones.
Wow.
You know? And we got round, but it was too much. It was silly. I started, I was killing myself.
Were there kits in the studios? Or
No, my own kits.
So were you driving in? You were, driving in the morning with a kit and doing, setting up, setting your kit up for every single session and taking it back down again.
Yeah, lugging it upstairs, and there was a place in Rhine where I did the basically roller stuff. It was 3 flights of stairs. Honestly,
you'd have been fit at the time.
Oh God! I mean, eventually, when it started getting the seams that you couldn't park, you couldn't find anywhere to park, you couldn't stop there. So then I got myself a roadie. So I used to pay him his full porterage, and he'd set my kit up for me. So which wasn't so bad, but
yeah.
No, I used to take it myself. I mean, I remember most of the time parking in Bond Street outside the studio and leaving it there, till they suddenly brought the meters in.
Yeah. So then, who else was around that time? I mean, I know that there's John Paul Jones was around doing sessions in the 60s. Jimmy Page and Bobby Graham, and I know Ron Ryan was there. And what was the sort of scene and between everybody like, and who was on the sessions that you worked on, or was there regular players that you worked with?
Yeah, I mean, you actually ended up playing with most of the guys anyway. It was like Alan Parker on guitar, Jimmy Page on guitar, Jim Sullivan, Vic Flick, people like that, Richie Tattersall, regular guys. It was like a little family. You put your head around the corner, see who's in the studio, and see the guys there. The faces that and enjoy working with. It was great. It was like a little family. That's what I miss. Is that camaraderie that we had then? Because we used to help them out. And the keyboard players. I did a session where David Bowie played keyboards on it.
Wow.
But they eventually took him off because it wasn't good enough to put somebody else on. I thought I had that. But I mean, John Paul Jones. I was with John Paul Jones. We were in the Lulu band together. We were Lulu's backing band because he used to travel with me because he never drove. And also he did a lot of the arrangements.
Oh right, okay. I didn't realise that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
What?
Sorry.
You were still touring. You kind of. So you were still interested in touring. You weren't just sort of hunkering down doing only sessions. You went, mentioned you went out with Billy Fury and you were playing in Lulu's band, and you still enjoyed touring.
Well, what happened when I started doing sessions full time? If you know what I mean, I didn't do a live gig for about a year, 18 months, which was a mistake, because it's the live stuff where you learn and you improve yourself as a player. Mm-hmm. If you make a mistake, who cares? It don't matter. it's gone. But when you're on a session and you've got a 30-piece orchestra and you cock up something and they'll look at you and you go, whoops, and you've got to do another take, which they don't like, you know. So that's which is so I went on the road with Lulu, you know, with John Paul Jones. Well, the band that and I did the Talk of the Town with Lulu was Alan Parker on guitar, Nick Hopkins on piano, John Paul Jones on bass, and myself on drums, you know. So it was quite a star-studded band, apart from miracles, when John Paul Jones became famous. But, you know,
yeah.
And what a musician. What a musician.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, they're all... it's a star-studded band from now. I wouldn't put yourself down. I mean, you know,
I mean, not compared to those guys, you know, to be honest. No, not that I'm sorry, because I can walk down the street and nobody gives a monkey's who I am, you know, which is nice, you know.
Were you listening to the sort of the radio much at that point? Did you sort of, no, I'm trying to find the right words. Did you care that, were you interested in the fact that songs you were playing on were on the radio, or was that just sort of, you know, it was just sort of, that was happening and it didn't matter too much?
No, I suppose, no, I didn't really go out my way to listen to the radio, you know, let's put it that way. A lot of the times I didn't like listening to stuff that I played on anyway, because I was saying, what the hell did I do that for? Why didn't I do this? You know, well, you know, it's like, as a player, you sometimes get too self-critical. So, I mean, there's certain stuff that I did that I listen to now and think, yeah, I didn't do a bad job, you know. But, you know, but then I didn't really go. I mean, to be honest, I never had time to listen to the radio. I was playing it.
I love that. So what was, in terms of that kind of stuff, so, you know, having to do things differently or whatever, I mean, the sessions will have been quite quick relative to sort of nowadays. What was Yeah, that's something I particularly like about that era, and I'd love to know kind of your thoughts on it, on, you know, just sort of getting from you arriving to a session to then coming out with a finished product. You're just sort of reacting in the moment to what's going on, and that, do you think that that's a lot of the reason that people particularly like music from that era, is because of that excitement that happened in the short session?
Yes, I think it's just I think it's just the thing is, it was on the, you know, on the spot, if you know what I mean. Music, it was done there and then. I mean, you do a take, you do 1, 2 takes. I mean, most of the time you have to do four titles on a session in 3 hours. So now you've got what? Plus, of course, you had a quarter-an-hour tea break, which your union rule stated you must have a break, which usually only the pub, but that's neither here nor there. But so, you know, the pressure was quite. This is what I found. The pressure was quite intense. You know, it's the fact that I couldn't read either. You know, I had to learn to read at one stage because it got silly, because most of the stuff when I started was covering for groups. And I did the whole album with the Kinks, called Kinks Controversy, in 3 sessions in 12 hours, you know.
Wow.
And was it? No, it wasn't even that. It was 9 hours. It was 3-hour sessions, you know. And so, you know, but it wasn't the fact is that the guys in the groups couldn't do it or whatever. It was because we were quicker. Yeah. That was the problem. That's why they got guys, the same Bay Rollers. A lot of the stuff, there wasn't even a group. I mean, there was a thing called The Bump. I don't know if you remember that. No. By Kenny. It was a #1 called The Bump. It wasn't even a group. We just went and recorded this number, and it came out and got to #1. They formed a group. You know? There was things like that went on, you know.
Did you enjoy the pressure, or did it, you know, did it make you feel anxious, or, you know, how did you cope with it?
No, I ended up having a heart attack, to be honest. You know. Oh God. The pressure got to me in the end. I mean, there was an immense pressure. The problem I had, because I wasn't a good reader, you know, I was getting thrown into things. You know, I did a thing with Shirley Bassey at the Talk of the Town. You know. And it wasn't supposed to be Shirley Bassey, it was supposed to be Dusty Springfield, who I'd worked with. So I knew most of the stuff. I got suddenly thrown in the deep end because Shirley Bassey came in instead, and I've got to play all this bloody big band stuff, you know, like Johnny One Note and all this. And I'm going, what the? And so, yeah, the pressure did get a bit in the end, I must admit. Yeah.
I'm interested about the sort of union rules. Again, I've read in interviews that you've given in the past about sessions that had to have a singer present.
Oh God, yeah. It was stupid.
Yeah, how did that all work? What was it? What were the sort of union rules at the time?
Well, when you're recording, you're supposed to have had the singer in the studio singing at the same time. Now, I tried to explain, because I got it knocked on the head, to be honest, because I said it's absolutely stupid, because, they used to get someone off the street just to stand in the box and make out they're singing, just to satisfy union rules, and the thing is, then they get, after we'd gone, they get the proper singer in and overdone, because when you're dealing with 16 and 18 track and 24 track machines, it's easy, isn't it? So I got knocked on the head, thank God. And the other thing was, when we used to do broadcasts, I did a lot of stuff with the not the Bachelors. I did some stuff with them, yeah, with the boy, Robin, what's the name and all that?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Gibbs. No. Gibbs, yeah, the Gibbs, what we call it.
Oh, yes, yeah.
I did a lot of stuff with them.
The Bee Gees.
And that's it, the Bee Gees. My brain's gone. And we were, they called me in and said, look, well, we're doing a broadcast next week. Do you want to come in? We're going to the studio. And we used to go in the studio and just sit there and have a cup of tea and have a chat. And then they get the tapes out that we'd actually recorded, for the records, and they'd send those to the BBC, and then suddenly, oh no, you can't do that. You've got to completely re-record everything, even though you can't get the same sound, when they spent time getting a good sound on a record, But that got changed, fortunately. The same.
Were the rules different for BBC and sort of union things? Was it all?
Oh no, not at all. I nearly caused a strike when I was doing Top of the Pops, because I did Top of the Pops band for 12 years.
Yeah.
And I got in there, and my music light wasn't. By the way, by then I was starting to be able to read a bit, and I had my music light stand light wasn't working, so because nobody plugged it in, so I plugged it in, and that was it. Oh dear me! They were going to close the studio. They were going to go. You wouldn't believe the hoo-ha. It was, well, that's the reason I ended up playing for Gladys Knight and Stevie Wonder.
Wow. Do you have a sort of particular either track or session, or just a memory of that era that stands out more than anything else?
Generally, or
just something, anything particular that you think back, really fondly of?
Well, I'll give you one fondly, and I'll give you one not fondly, if you like.
Yeah.
The fondly one was Top of the Pops, and I did the track where I backed Gladys Knight in the pits. She was amazing. I couldn't believe that when I put the headphones on and his voice. And you didn't have to play; it just pulls you along. It was fantastic,
Wow, I love that expression. Yeah,
yeah, she's brilliant. Honestly, I became a big fan. In fact, I became a very good friend of the drummer there, I don't know if you remember. Her drummer he got shot about a month later, 2 months later.
Oh wow, I didn't know about that.
I forget his name now. Great guy. In fact, he borrowed. He was at that session, and he borrowed my snare drum to do the tour with. Because he loved the sound of it,
What snare was it? Do you remember?
I can't think of his name. He was quite a well-known American drummer, but I know he got shot a few bit later on. And all kind.
Do you remember the snare drum that you lent in?
Yeah, it was a classic 400.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, it wasn't a Super 400. It was a classic 400, and it was a great sound. They've done their best. What's his name? Robin. What was his name? Yeah. I did the thing with Box, the Rockin' Robin thing I did with, he was only 13 years old, Michael Jackson. The Jackson 5, played for Jackson 5 on Top of the Pops. And this is the other side, where the drummer, because again, the union rules stated that they couldn't play because they weren't allowed to, because they had to. Right, so things I had to play. And his drummer was bugging me all day long, getting more. I mean, I think he ended up pulling off the season. He had so much stuff up his nose. And he was getting really bit thing. And I had to play. And I said, look, I've got no choice. I'll be quite happy for you to play. And I can go to the pub. I don't care, but I'm not allowed to. Anyway, in the end, fairness, Michael Jackson came over to him and said, look, get out the studio and stay out the studio. And sent him out the studio. And in fairness, after we did the gig, Michael Jackson came over and said, thanks, guys, it was great.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, being around some of those, so musicians, you've had some unbelievable experiences. I guess most people were just normal people. I mean, we think of them as being super famous, but you must have just been meeting these people fairly regularly, and they just were sort of, they have a show personality, and then they've got a sort of working personality, if you like.
Yeah, but just the amazing part of it, the good ones, the good players, was always the nicest. It was always ones that knew he made it, or were trying to make it, were a bit nasty.
Yeah.
I mean, when I started sessions, because I was a rock and roller, I came off the rock and roll scene. I mean, there was an MD that booked me, Nicky Walsh, a guy called Nicky Walsh, who taught me quite a lot about session work.
Yeah.
And he said to me, I was in the studio setting my stuff up, and somebody went from the band, I don't know who it was, said, who's that guy in the corner? He said, oh, it's Clem Cattini. He said, well, who is he? He said, he's the drummer. Yeah, but he's new, isn't he? And it was that sort of attitude when I first started, because I didn't come off the jazz scene. I came off the rock and roll scene. There was this little hooligan sitting in the corner, Well, I wasn't little then because I was fat.
I might regret asking, but you said you had a slightly not so fond memory.
Yeah, well, that was the one, the Michael Jackson one. That was that was not with Michael Jackson. That was with the guy, the drummer. And I had a few non-friendly ones on Top of the Pops, believe me. I don't know why. Every artist we had seemed to hate. I didn't like. And I mean, when ABBA got in the charts, the first thing they did, they put them on Top of the Pops because they won the Eurovision.
Yeah.
And, the guy, I don't know who it was, the keyboard player, whoever he is, says to me, are you the drummer? I went, yeah. He said, well, can you play this? And I felt like turning around and says, nah, that's why I'm here. I felt like, I didn't say that. I wish I had now, looking back.
Do you have a track that I'm sure you get asked this a lot, but a recording that you're most proud of? I mean, it doesn't have to be any obvious one. Have you got anything that you can remember thinking, I love the part I came up with that?
Hurdy-gurdy man.
Hurdy-gurdy man, okay.
Yeah, I like that because I don't know what I was doing, but I must have had a drink beforehand because I'd never played that again.
Love it. What,
I didn't know I had that technique, to be honest.
How did it all sort of begin to die down? Did you join the Tornadoes and just sort of toured with them, or how did?
Oh no, the Tornadoes were before that. Yeah, no,
okay.
This. It was in. Well, I tell you when it started. When my decline, if you like. Whatever you want to call it.
Don't want to call it that.
No, the session scene declined,
the session scene did,
there was guys coming in with good local players, and they did what I did when I came in. I took somebody else's place, and they were taking my place, And the thing, it was sort of the 80s and 90s where the mechanical music came in, machines and that started. So that really put the kibosh on it a bit, to be honest. But and to be honest, I was getting to a state that I didn't like it anyway. I was getting, I didn't like the way the business was going anyway, because we weren't making records, we were making products.
Yeah.
I did a whole album with just bass guitar and myself, and then they put the guitar in, the drums, the keyboards in, the brass in, the voice in afterwards. You know, that's not making music. That's making a product. You know, you're supposed to be playing for something, aren't you? You know.
Yeah, I'd never really thought about it like that. So, every session that you were doing previous to that will have been playing, making a backing track essentially.
Yeah, with
a basic
all of us,
track.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, that as a, sort of younger musician now, I can feel there's a pull to getting back to that because, as I said before, the sort of,
I hope so.
The special stuff that you guys came out with in that era is, everybody looks to that era as it's, that's almost the pinnacle of, I call it's the golden age of recording. It's what this podcast is about. And, that's got to be part of, one of the major factors in it is that you all played in the room together and you're looking at each other.
Yeah, exactly. You feed off it. Well, being a musician, you feed off each other, don't you? You're listening to the bass, you're listening to, and then whatever the guitar player's playing, you feed off that. That's how you make music, isn't it? And I was going in the studio. I've got a click track for start off, which is a nightmare to play with anyway. Yes. But I mean, fortunately, I had reasonably good times. I used to manage to keep in. Sometimes I found the click track didn't play with me, but apart from that,
I know that feeling.
You know that feeling. And the thing was, that's not making music. I mean, you make music with other guys. You listen to each other and play together, don't you? And play off each other. You feed off each other. And that's why I started to get fed up with them at the. I did a bit of a period of sort of programming drum machines because John Paul Jones used to do a lot of arrangement and used to send me the parts and the drum machine. I used to program it for him and send it back in a cab.
Oh, interesting.
But I didn't like it. I've got to be honest.
No. What? So the sort of question I always ask is, you. It feels, I think you agree that you kind of happened upon this career, but what if you were to give some advice based on your experiences to, whether it's advice to somebody coming up now or whether it's just general sort of life advice to if you could go back now and give yourself some advice or any sort of overriding piece of advice that you would take from your experiences, what would you say?
Yeah, first of all, ignore the MD. Don't follow. No, but no. Just the whole is listen to the song, listen to what the song wants, and play for that song. And also, and the main thing we're there for is to play time and play time. And also, which my two grandsons they got grade 1 in drums, but they weren't taught to use a metronome. You've got to get yourself, not because it's thing, you play differently when you're listening to a metronome. And, I've experimented with a guy. I said, play me some triplets. And he played it. I said, now play it with a metronome. And he hadn't got a clue. I said, well, that's one, because it makes you relax and sit back on everything. And I think, it's just playing the song. That's the biggest advice I can get. And listen, use your ears. That's what they're here for.
Absolutely.
So I've been told anyway.
Just finally, talk to me about your book and how that sort of came about, because I think a lot of people listening to this will be interested to read it.
Well, I was been badgered for ages to do one, and I didn't want to do one. I said, what's the point? I mean, there's a lot of people about far better than me and far better players and more experienced players than me that haven't got one out. Why should I put one out? I mean, it's probably like Brian Bennett hasn't even got one out, which is, I can't believe. Anyway, so but then somebody said to me, which made the point, was if you're not doing it for yourself, do it for your grandchildren. Because it's true, my grandchildren hadn't got a clue what I was doing until I knew my nieces. They didn't know what I was doing until they read the book, and they didn't realise what was going on whilst I was working, what was going on in the world at that time. So it's like a little bit of a sort of history book, if you know what I mean.
Yes, yeah. I think it's really important. I mean, there's a lot of, especially now, there seems to be a bit of a hark back to that era, and a lot of people are interested in what you were doing. So I'm grateful that you've written it.
No, I am now. I mean, I'll never get. I'm not going to be a millionaire on that, that's for sure. But the thing is, no, I'm glad I did it because for my grandchildren's sake, they know now. They know what I did. My niece now knows what I was doing and what I. I remember my kids once saying, "What do you do for a living? How do you explain to a kid?" All I said was, "I go around eating things." That's the only way I could explain it. But and I think as well, we're losing a sense of our history, aren't we? Generally, not only musically, and musical history is going by the board. And I think it's sad, really.
I hope that the conversations that I'm having with people like yourself we're going to help that, and help sort of keep it's a way of documenting what's happened. What's happened. I mean, I know that there's a lot of sort of debate on a lot of the sessions that happened through the 60s, and there's a lot of history that's already been lost because it wasn't documented at the time. And it's hard to remember. And I'm sure that there's tracks that you're on that you probably don't even realize that you're on.
Oh, absolutely. I'm still getting people saying, "Oh, by the way, you played on my record." And I said, "Didn't I? I don't even remember." And the thing is, there's a difference between here and the States. There's what's name's drummer, the Boss's drummer. Oh God, what his name? Max Weinberg.
Oh yeah,
Max Weinberg, who became sort of a friend of mine. He knows more about English musicians than we do. He knew the history of all the drummers. Seriously, I couldn't believe it. And he was saying, "You did this, and so played on that." And the only thing he wasn't happy about, I told him that Dave Clark never played in his records, which he wasn't too pleased about.
No,
because Dave Clark was massive in America, massive. And when I said, "Well, no, he didn't play on his records," and I don't think he was too enamoured, but they know more. Their history thing is more important than ours is, if you know what I mean. They take it more seriously, I should say, than we do. He knew everything about English musicians. It was incredible. It was, and
I think it's important to document it all. I'm interested in all that. I've written down the names of all the people that you've mentioned, and I think it's really important to know about who was there, and sort of even just to acknowledge the fact that you guys did some amazing stuff, and people need to know about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like when we look at my era, we look back at the jazz eras, the Ronnie Verrills, the Kenny Clares, and the people like that, and Buddy Rich and all that lot. We look at them, that's how, but I mean, to be honest, somebody says, "Who are you with?" And I say the Tornadoes. They go, "Who? What did they do?" They haven't got a clue. Not that why should they? But I think they should, not for me, but I think they should do, because, that's a part of history. It was the first band to get #1 in America, and it's never played on, it's sort of mentioned to that degree.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge, isn't it? And that's everybody thinks about the Beatles breaking America, but that's
exactly
not,
that doesn't come into it. I mean, it's the same as Abbey Road, or EMI, as I still call it. The fact is that all the stuff that was coming out of #2 studio way before the Beatles, it's a sad, a lot of people just think the Beatles started. And the thing that makes me laugh is the zebra crossing that they all cross on thing and have photographs done is not the original anyway.
No,
because they moved it.
Yeah, it's there was a whole wealth of history there before they even started to play recording.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I've crossed it many a time.
Yeah,
the old one.
Did you worked with Paul McCartney at one point? Did you?
Yes, I did an album with him. Yes, it was called. It was an instrumental version of one of their albums.
Okay.
Well, I knew Paul and that lot before they were the Beatles.
Oh,
I knew them when they were the Silver Beatles, because when I was with Billy Fury, and we used to play Liverpool, which where Billy came from, they used to come around and say, "Can you take me in to meet Billy?" Because they were big fans of Billy's.
Okay.
And in actual fact, I was asked to join Wings at one stage.
Oh, cool. And did that just not come about?
And no, the offer wasn't very good. So, I was earning more money sitting at home. So, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard amazing things about the way that Paul treats musicians in the studio, musically, I'm talking about. And, was he, I think a lot of people would be interested to know about how his sessions were.
Well, it was fine. We did, it's Percy Thrillington is the name of the album that I did with Paul.
Yeah,
Percy Thrillington.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's all different things, and it was fine. I mean, because he had a guy there who was MDing for him, who was really in charge rather than Paul. So he managed to keep it all together, and sort of Paul didn't interfere. He let him get on with it, but it was good. I mean, he did it for a laugh, evidently, originally. Yeah, seriously. I don't think he ever intended to release it, but it got released eventually. But no, he was fine. I mean, when first time I worked for George Martin. I was getting, and it was Night Time, Right Time at Paul Jones just after he left Manfred Mann.
Yes.
And it was the hit. Yeah, I can't even remember the title. What was it called? I can't remember. Anyway, and also he said, "Drummer, I like that what you're doing. Drummer, that's good what you did there." And then I said, "Excuse me, Mr." But I said, "No, the drummer does have a name." But that's to be honest, was another thing with musicians, they're not getting respect. I mean, I was telling a mate of mine was telling me in America, they were doing a big session at one of the studios there, and because it was a big orchestra thing, they moved all the staff cars out of the car park so the musicians could park.
Yeah.
Here, you have to go to EMI to park. No car park here. And you couldn't park anywhere, the usual. I'm sure you must come across that one a few times.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much has changed.
Especially EMI, they were dreadful there. Oh no, you can't park here. It's because you've got the executive upstairs parking there, or the sound man's parked there. But never about musicians. You got a luggage drum kit in. Didn't matter,
Yeah, it seems a shame. I still think that people view musicians. I know that it seems like quite a cool job to have, if you like, but it's definitely seen as a sort of second-rate job, not a proper job.
I always think musicians are like knives and forks. You go into a restaurant, they can make money out of the food, but they have to have knives and forks. But they don't make money out of them. You know what I mean? You can get a loaf of bread and sell it for twice what you paid for it. But in knives and forks, you can't do anything. You have to have them, and you have to have what they're paid. You paid for them, whether you like it or not. That's why I view that musicians like knives and forks.
Yeah,
it's true, though, isn't it? When you think about it,
absolutely is. Yeah.
They do make money out of you eventually, but there's something they would rather do without. That's what I found as well. Funny enough, getting towards the 80s and 90s, that producers and whatever, they didn't want to use musicians anymore, And a lot of people are doing it themselves anyway, but I think, musicians were just a pain, We had to pay these guys to come and do something, which we think we can do better,
Yeah.
So it's a sad thing, really.
It is. It's very interesting. And I hope that, I actually think that with, I do a lot of remote sessions, which I know is not ideal, but I think that with the sort of ease of home recording now, I think that people are starting to use good musicians again because they're accessible. You can get in touch with some pretty great players these days.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, be fair. I mean, there's some fantastic players now. I mean, I'm glad I'm out of it. To be honest. There's so many good players around now. It's unbelievable. Technique-wise, I mean, the technique of drumming was improved. I mean, since I've been doing it from the end of the 50s. It's the improvement of people's technique and ideas is 200-fold. To be honest.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's a good thing. the only thing that I will say that one thing you can't teach is feel.
Agreed. Yeah, I love that. Yes.
You know, that's the only thing. I mean, you know, I worked with a girl drum. I was doing some sort of teaching stuff. I don't teach now because I couldn't cope with it. I couldn't. Anyway, there's another story. And she had that double bass on the most amazing thing. I felt embarrassed sitting there going, I'm trying to teach these girls, if they teach me. But I said, at the end of the week, they used to do a concert for their family. And I said, do Tequila. You remember the number Tequila? That one.
Yeah.
I said, sorry about that. And I said, do Tequila. And the middle bit where it goes into swing, she couldn't play for the sake. I spent a whole week trying to teach her just to play forward to the bar.
Wow.
You know, there's so much. But the technique going around the kit, double bass, unbelievable. So that's the only thing as I said, you can't teach feel, can you? You know, whether you like, you know.
No, you can make forward to the bar swing, even without the skip notes, you can. Just the crotchets.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You can do it on just forwards, you know. Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, thank you so much for speaking with me. I
No,
love
so
hearing
it's
your
a pleasure.
stories.
I hope a lot of it wasn't a lot of rubbish, but there you go.
Not at all. It's been fascinating. You know, I'd love to go through every artist you've worked with and just pick your brains about every session, but they said it would take you.
Well, we can do that if you want. Why not?
Maybe
I've
another.
got some good stories and bad stories. Believe me.
well, maybe we'll have to do another one, and we can go into a bit more detail. But yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you for giving me your time.
All right, mate. You're welcome, Joe. No problem.
Cheers,
Thanks for getting in touch. Anyway.
Yeah, I will. I'll send you an email when it comes out.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank you, and you. Thanks for asking.
Cheers. Thanks, Clem. Speak to you later.
See you, mate.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
What a chap. I can't believe how nice he is. I tell you what, that's something that I tell people a lot when they ask me about sort of the people that I speak to, or especially younger people who ask me about the music industry and that sort of thing, is the higher up the chain you get, the nicer everybody seems to be. I'm sure that's not always the case, but most people who are at a high level in this industry are just completely lovely, and Clem is a very, very, very good example of that. Okay, so I've got another drum sort of a heavy episode next week. It's with a producer, so it's not all about drums, and he owns a fantastic studio, and he also lives in Canada. So I'm not going to tell you who he is, but it's a very cool episode, and it was a very exciting episode for me. I'd also like to know, if you're listening to this before the new year, who would you like me to speak to in 2022? I've had lots of requests for guests this year, and I've managed to get quite a lot of them on. And I'm always trying to find people that I'm interested in, who either have, who have a similar attitude to a recording that we all have, and also people who were sort of involved in that era of recording. And I've got a bit of a wish list still, but I do really enjoy getting your requests in for people if you know somebody who is interested in it, or if there's a studio owner who's operating currently, or if somebody who you think would just be a good conversation to have that's related to all of this kind of stuff, then please do give me an email on joe@allyouneedisdrums.com. You can also find me on Instagram @allyouneedisdrums, and my website is allyouneedisdrums.com. On there you'll find a shop, and you can support this podcast by buying a mug. You could also, it's a lovely enamel mug, by the way. There's plenty of pictures of them on my Instagram page. There's also an album up there of the 2-track sessions I do with my band, The Hootenanny, and that's that. So yes, unless you've run out of Christmas money, in which case don't buy anything from the website, because just don't. I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, right, I hope you've all had a wonderful Christmas, and I will speak to you next Tuesday with the next episode. So that just leaves me to say a huge thank you to Joe Kane for the intro and outro music, for Adam Mallet for the artwork that he supplied for the podcast, and to Rory Hancock for doing all of the legwork when it comes to uploading and creating the artwork and all of that kind of stuff. So thanks, Rory, and I will speak to you all next week. Goodbye.